It's great to be here at the GBTA Sustainability Pavilion. My name is Greg Demers, and I'm with Climate Partner in Boston. I'm here with my colleague Lindsay Wright, and excited to be part of the conference. I'll be talking about keys to building a credible climate strategy for business travel. So to kind of give away the answer up front, it doesn't need to be overly complex to make progress. The first step is really just to commit to climate action. Once you've done that, you'll want to measure the carbon footprint of your operations to understand what is the magnitude of the emissions associated with our activities. Then once you know that, then you can set out a strategy to reduce that, to offset what can't be reduced, and then lastly, to develop a strategy to communicate that out to employees, customers, and other stakeholders. But before we get into that, why are we talking about climate change at the GBTA conference? It can often feel like an abstract conference that doesn't touch our lives in a real and meaningful way. We see headlines in the news, stories about drought, wildfires, water shortages, but what does it all mean? The first graph shows global average surface temperature change over the last 100 years or so. And by looking at the data, you can see that the last 30 to 40 years have been significant outliers heading in one direction, upward from a temperature perspective. You also see headlines about projecting what's going to happen in the future. The graph on the right looks at projections under different scenarios of how global warming temperatures will change through the year 2100. Only one scenario, the lowest one, stays within the Paris Accord goal of 1.5 degrees C temperature change globally. So we have our work cut out for us. But what can make it real, I think, is when it's something that you feel personally in your own life. This is a drought map taken from government website from earlier this month, showing widespread drought across the U.S. Just today, there were several headlines about extensive drought in Europe. At Lake Mead in Nevada, it's the lowest water level since 1937. Lindsay and I are based in Boston, north of Boston's where I live, and we get our water from the Ipswich River watershed. You don't often think about Boston as an area with drought, but the headlines, in a classic Boston way, say it all. Massachusetts is wicked dry. We have a severe drought. The water that provides my home with water is at its lowest level since records have been taken in 92 years. Why is it? We haven't seen rain of any significance for 6 weeks. So climate change manifests itself in a number of ways. So here we are at a travel conference. There's an elephant in the room. Business travel has an inherently high carbon footprint. We have to acknowledge that. Employees of the companies we work with know that. Customers and consumers know that. So what are we going to do about it? We need to take action. We cannot ignore it. Leading businesses are setting reduction goals specific to business travel as part of an overall corporate commitment to climate change. PwC, Ernst & Young, Adobe have set goals of reducing emissions associated with business travel from 25 to 50% just in a matter of 5 years or less. And that's just the beginning. NGOs and other organizations are rating how corporations are managing specifically corporate business travel. So everyone needs to understand the climate impacts associated with business travel. Luckily, there is a way to do that. There's proven methods that don't need to be overly complex to do so. So measurement is the first step. What does measurement involve? So this is an example of a corporate carbon footprint for a single standalone hotel with 100 rooms. How do you determine it? It's not overly complex. You need to gather data about fuel usage, about some of your service providers, about food usage. We group them into different categories called Scope 1, 2, and 3, and together they make up the carbon footprint. When you look at it In totality, you can get essentially a heat map. What are the aspects of your operations that are most significant from a greenhouse gas perspective? So in this case, heating, on-site heating of the facility is significant. Of course, electricity is a big contributor, but food is the third biggest. So we'll come back to what you can do once you have this type of information. You can also look at that same information through the lens of someone staying at that hotel just for one night. What's the carbon footprint associated with my stay at that hotel? And it's a more simplified version looking at the electricity and heating being the vast majority. Again, food, waste, and water being other contributors. For a conference like this, you can look at what's the carbon footprint. And in fact, GBTA has done so. So in that case, rather than heating and electricity being a significant contributor, mobility. We all came from somewhere else, or most of us did. Lindsay and I flew in from Boston. So transit or transportation to and from an event is often the biggest component, because as talked about in the prior presentation, jet travel is significant creator of greenhouse gas emissions. The hotel stay, the electricity to operate and run this conference is also a contributor. In addition to looking at individual events, you can use APIs and technology to do that on a more automated fashion. Several aspects of travel can be managed through an API integrated to whether it's an online booking or ticketing system. So that's a tool that can help to automate and scale solutions. So once you have that information, the next step is you want to figure out, what can I reduce? How can I lower those numbers so that my activity, my hotel, my business has less greenhouse gas emissions? In the case of business travel, you have to look at a number of lenses. Who's attending? How many people? Is it a hybrid event? What's the role of virtual or other ways that people can participate? Again, what's the location? What are the transportation implications? What are the food and beverage choices? What's the role of vegetarian or vegan meals that can be used? Am I locally sourcing food? What type of accommodations are we selecting? Is it an energy efficient one or not? And are we using disposable items, single-use items, or not? In the case of that hotel we looked at initially, you can go down through each line item and as a leadership team assess what can be done to address that. What can be done in the near term or in the longer term? What can be done around LED lighting in a fixed facility, around insulation, energy efficient heating systems? Are we planning to switch to an EV for transportation? Have we looked into purchase of green electricity, etc.? So those are the types of decisions on a business perspective to start on that journey of climate action. Once you've done what you can to reduce, then you can offset or compensate for the emissions that can't be reduced in the near term. So while you're on that journey to reduce continually, you can use carbon offsets as a way to compensate today for the emissions that are being generated, essentially taking out greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere in a different part of the world from where you're generating them. So carbon offset projects can take many different forms. They're often in third world countries or developing countries. They can involve renewable energy and green energy purchase. They can be nature-based solutions such as tree planting. They can have a social impact and often contribute to sustainable development goals, such as clean cook stoves to replace open burning for cooking. An example project that we're involved with is in the Democratic Republic of Congo at a wildlife refuge. It's a hydropower project that was funded through the revenue that comes from carbon offsets. And that project alone is going to generate electricity for 600,000 people. At the same time, it's securing the legacy of the community around that natural resource preserve that exists, and it's been verified through the carbon standard. So then once you've mapped out a carbon offset project, you've reduced your emissions, and they've been measured, then you develop a communication strategy. Who do I need to engage to tell the story of what we're doing in showing project and create a dialogue, whether it's suppliers, customers, or employees? So a key element is transparency, talking about what you're doing, the challenges you're facing, and the journey that you're on. You can't wait till you have all the answers, because you may not have those answers for 10 years. So create a dialogue about what actions you're taking now. You want to align with a broader commercial and corporate strategy for sustainability and for the business, so that it's not viewed as a one-off, standalone, special project, that it's integrated in the way the business operates. And you also have to be mindful of legal issues and greenwashing. You need to be credible in what you say, and you need to be able to stand up to the test of public scrutiny. So this is for a hotel that we've worked with that chose to go carbon neutral. They've integrated that into their website and then created a linkage to pages that talk about the footprint of their operations, the carbon offset project that they've chosen. They can also highlight the reduction measures that they've implemented. And another example for a conference, through the app of the conference, it's also been integrated to a website, again, to share that same information and communicate through multiple channels to engage with the participants. In the case of a shared ride service that wants to offer carbon neutral rides, they're integrating it into the app for that service, and again, showing clear transparency around the carbon offsets for that business and using it to help differentiate their offering from their competitors. As a business, we seek to educate a wide range of stakeholders on these types of topics. So we're offering an academy that offers free live learning sessions that range from 1.5 to 2.5 hours on a wide range of topics. 2 upcoming sessions that you may want to look into relate to carbon offset projects and supply chain decarbonization. It was a very complex aspect of climate change, going beyond your own operations and engaging suppliers. We anticipate having more sessions down the road in the fall, but that's one place that you can come up to speed. So climate action is a journey, and it's important to get started. Us and many of the other providers are here to help you discuss and educate what's a good fit for your business. It begins with a commitment to take action, and that begins by understanding your business better. Once you understand that, you'll be able to take actions to reduce, to offset what you can't reduce, and communicate that out. We look forward to being here over the next 4 days with you and appreciate your time. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has now. Hi. Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Johnson. I'm with a company called Motive, M-O-T-E-V. We are a sustainability-focused black car service. And so we use electric vehicles and hybrids for all of it's a ground transportation company. So we've been on this mission since 2016, and we've been looking to partner with people. But one of the things we can't do or have been unable to do at this stage is to quantify the impact that we're having. So we know we are doing good because the basic measurements of using the electric vehicle offsets the carbon emissions of a fossil fuel vehicle 7 to 1, but we can't get a quantifiable measurement. So when we go to present, say, hey, look at us as a potential partner, how do we quantify it? Does your company, or what kind of solutions can you have for us to quantify it?
Yeah, so that comes under the measurement step. So in our case, there's lots of different ways you can do it. It could be done in Excel, it could be done in very complex systems, and we try to be in the middle. So we have an online tool that's used to calculate. We work across a range of industries, of which tourism travel is one of them. So in that case, and one of our advantages, I think, is that we have a very low cost of entry to do that exercise, because we try and make it as much self-help as possible. Our focus is on scaling our solution in a way that has as much impact as possible. And that means low cost, high quality, low effort. So the idea is that you need to gather a certain amount of inputs to be able to do that calculation, and we work with you to pull that in, and then that spits out from our online calculation tool. And that with that, you can use to develop that communication strategy to help spread that word and differentiate what you're offering as compared to others. Thanks, Larry. Anybody else?
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Denise with Marriott International, and I don't know if you are aware, but the industry for 10 years now has aligned on methodology for calculating carbon footprint for hotels,
Yep.
and we're trying to be really transparent about it. So I'm just curious if the calculator that you have leverages that kind of information, or you're using estimation data to pull that data through.
Sure. Well, at our core, we're compliant with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is the global standard that we comply with. In terms of the specific industry association, I would have to check, and I'm happy to get back to you on that. But we do leverage technology, and one of our core values is pragmatism. We're not trying to invent the wheel, and we're not purists, so we're trying to find the right balance of accuracy and credibility, but also not overcomplicating things in a way that prevent progress and action. So happy to connect and get you that information. All right. Well, thank you very much. Look forward to discussion over the coming days.